Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights and information or simply learning from them. And today we have Jay Vikram Bakshi, who understands tech, uses tech, and who have worked with high tech companies and today advises tech startups. But before I move forward, please may I ask you all to subscribe to my news to my channel so that you can get instant updates on the show, so that you know that there is a show coming up immediately. And now coming back, the topic today is changing tech and the common man, and no better man than Jay Vikram Bakshi to talk about it. So, Jay Vikram Bakshi, how this changing tech and how a common man is trying to establish some sort of what you call symbiosis or symbiotic relationship with it, because tech users are common people, normal people, and very high tech people also. तो आप इसको कैसे देखते हैं? How in day to day life it has impacted our work life, social life, as a human being, and what's the future of it? We will today take it up one by one. पहले we are using like phones, laptop, Wi-Fi, COVID में हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस, कोई भी आप टेक यूज कीजिए, एयरपोर्ट पे बैठ के आप इंश्योरेंस ले सकते हैं, आपको फ्लाइट पकड़नी है, गाड़ी का आप चलते हुए गाड़ी में आप इंश्योरेंस करवा सकते हो अगर एक्सपायर हो रहा है तो. इसको आप कैसे देखते हैं? हाउ डू यू सी इम्पैक्टिंग our lives today from an outside, a bit holistic view from that point, and then we'll take it micro.
Thank you so much, Ajay, and thank you to all your viewers who are joining you at this point of time. Yes, you are absolutely right. आज के तारीख में, if you look at it closely, technology and your life is completely woven together. And this is not new, actually. If you go back into history and somebody says that, the invention of the wheel was a huge technological revolution of that time. So how did the wheel get integrated into society? So you had a potter's wheel, you had the charioteer's wheel, you had the wheel used for war. I would say that the way to look at tech is the same way. So today when we say tech, we talk about computers, your
Right.
mobile phones, because this is what has become completely known. Laptop ghar ghar mein hai, mobile phones, especially smartphones in your hands. I mean, I shouldn't even call them mobile anymore, because today an average smartphone has more computing power than the first Apollo 11 mission, which went and hit the moon. So the moon landing was done with less technology and less computer power than that is available in your handphone today.
That's quite some information. I actually did not know.
So in fact, there was, I mean, I don't want to name the doyen of technology, but at one point of time, he had said that 1 megabit of data should be enough for all human beings at one point of time, which was in the 80s. Today, your iPhone or your Android phone has, almost a terabit of data. And the supercomputers, which used to be talked about in the 80s, today are actually inside your laptops. So that's how this thing has happened. There are a couple of laws which govern this. One law, which some people who are technology enthusiasts will remember, is called Moore's law, which is that every 2.5 years, 2 years, the computing power doubles, and the price of that chip goes down. So what that does is that there is more and more smartness, more and more computing power, which is inside your device. The second piece, which I think, which you alluded to in your opening remarks, is that you can buy insurance at any point of time from anywhere. And that has to do with the networks that you've had. So early days when you had 2G, 2.5G, data was not going through, right? So you started seeing how data progresses. And now at this point of time, post-COVID, you have, OTT platforms, right? This
Right.
entire OTT platforms are talking about live streaming, right? So live streaming is the just like this broadcast, it's being created and being shown across the world at the same time with a little bit of delay, perhaps, which is to do with technology more than anything else. And this is enabled only because of the sophistication of the data networks, right? And the third part, which is fairly new, and I'm going to take you, if I have time, through a small
Yeah, yeah,
deck on
sure.
where we are going, is through what is known as distributed computing. Now,
Okay.
distributed computing, if you remember, first time you would have heard about it is somebody would have said, in the mid 2000s, cloud computing, right?
Okay.
And I remember a lot of my friends saying, "Hey, what is cloud computing? Is it something to do with, corporate clouds, and where does it uh, belong? And does this cloud even rain?" So the thing is that it was just a terminology. It meant that you did not need to have a physical server or a physical laptop. This connectivity and this computing power would be connected peer to peer and through servers and networks across the world. Now, the fact that there is so much of computing power out there at this point of time that you don't really need to build an application on a laptop anymore. You can build very large applications up in the cloud.
Okay.
So when you say something like, okay, so what impacts you regularly? So your Aadhaar card, for instance,
Yeah,
impacts you
yeah, yeah.
regularly. Yeah, you put in your mobile number, your Aadhaar card, and you do that insurance buying at the airport or in a car. So there is computing infrastructure up there, which is at real time checking whether your Aadhaar card and your mobile matches with your name and your profile, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
at the base of this, using just this as an example, right? There's this other new thing which I know you will talk about or want to know about at some point of time, which is blockchain, or what is
Yes.
commonly known as crypto.
Yeah.
So the secret here is that it's no mystery. What has happened is there's a very defined progression which has happened. It's just that it has not, it's just come into our awareness at this point of time. In my case, I've been an enthusiast since I think the early 90s. I remember at a university lab, one of my aeronautical science friends who took me into the lab and introduced me to something called EarNet. EarNet
Hmm.
was the early version of India's internet. It was a internet access which was created among the top universities to share their libraries, their library
Hmm.
books.
Hmm. Hmm.
That EarNet then got a internet connection via VSNL, and then you had a VSNL net. I remember those days because I used to have an email ID. And that time, being an internet entrepreneur or internet enthusiast was a big deal because there were hardly 100,000 people in this country who had an internet connection.
Right.
And
Right.
there was an internet users club also at that point of time with late actor Shami Kapoor being one of the big vocal advocates of it. From there, as the mobile revolution took off in this country, and I'm fortunate to have been involved with both the telecom software revolution as well as the internet revolution in this country, I've had a ringside view on how these two technologies came together, merged together, exploded, and is now creating absolutely new paradigms. So that point which you mentioned, when I was starting out my work life, and as you would have probably done so, the smartest machine in our offices used to be a fax machine, right?
Yeah.
Well, that was the level of high tech. Now, if I tell somebody who's getting into work today, and especially post COVID, that there was something called a fax machine in my office, he said, "What are you talking about?" Because for that person, even email is history. Email
Right.
is something which you do to set up your user accounts, right?
Right. Right.
80% of the time you're on either, if you're doing some kind of conversation, you're on Instagram chat, you're on WhatsApp chat, or if you're a little more structured, you're in Slack and other places like Microsoft Meets, etc.
Hmm.
um, but your entire awareness has changed. There's no exchange of document which is happening, or okay, even if it's happening, it's lesser. What you're seeing is collaborative endeavors. Like, for instance, in this case, I am collaborating with you to create content on your channel, right? So this is happening seamlessly real time. There is no script which you're following. There is no script which I am following. We are jamming together and creating a script which your viewers are seeing real time,
Right.
right? So this is
Right.
fundamentally different from the earlier method of You being the creator, you will send a draft to me, and I will look at the draft, edit it, and say, okay, this is where I'm coming in. This is what you should do, and this is what I should do, and this is what your viewers should see. Now it's all happening together. Maybe there is some amount of collaboration, there is some amount of conceptualization in terms of, okay, these are the 5 questions I will ask you, Jay, or Ajay, these are the 2 3 points I want to make. But beyond that, it is much more collaborative than it has ever been. Now,
Yeah, but Jay, I sorry to interrupt you, but you see, in terms of the implications on a common man, if you see, suppose we are also, uh, you can say, adept with our technology, machines, our phones, laptops, and everything. Now look at a scenario: somebody who is in his 50s, 60s, he lives in a very high tech building. He goes to the lift. He knows that the lift will take him anywhere he wants, whichever floor he wants, or to the ground floor, or to his car parking. He just presses a button. But then he does not know, or many of these people do not know, that if the lift stops, what to do exactly. And that is where the technology part, becomes difficult for some. I wanted to get your expert view on how do you view this? How do you find a way out of this, that people who are very good in so many things suddenly find that tech is helping them, but at the other end, tech suddenly becomes almost like a disadvantage in certain situations. Or if today, if you look at world of Internet of Things, your home, fully wired, and you are so much dependent through your voice, you are controlling everything, and suddenly you are out of your home and you suddenly had a blank out and you don't remember anything, and the computer does not remember you then. So both the scenarios, the lift and the
hmm,
Internet of Things and the computer forgetting you
hmm,
forget the password or the whatever the word, and the
hmm,
computer forgets you. It's not
hmm,
with humans.
hmm.
So
No,
how do you
I'm very happy you brought this up because there are ways and ways and ways. Okay, one word of advice to everybody who's listening is that keep a physical record of the passwords you do not want to forget. Number one.
okay?
Number two, if you see
And then
all
in
the
that question is, where do you keep that record? I'm just joking, but everybody has their own.
maintain a small book if you want. But if you look at what's happening, every one of the accounts that you're talking about have a two-factor authentication, right?
Right,
And multiple device authentication. The simple
right,
reason is that to make, see, technology is not really usable unless it is usable by humans. So
right.
there used to be a huge amount of work to be done, which was done before our time, on what is known as human computer interface, right? So how should humans, engage with computers? This is a laptop, this is the keyboard, this is the screen, this is the mouse. This is where I remember debates between Steve Jobs and Bill Gates on graphic user interface. Where should what be?
Mhm.
Should the screen start from left to right, top to bottom, or should it start from bottom, right to left, and up? So there's been a huge amount of standard setting on these things. There are simple terms called interoperability. How do you
Mhm.
make sure that your USB port will pick up data and power at the same time? Nowadays, nobody thinks, right? USB
Mhm.
port,
Right,
laga diya, I've charged my phone. But USB port itself used to be a patented technology. Wha-
right, right.
Probably a patented technology developed by people out of Intel, if I'm not mistaken.
Mhm.
So there is technology in almost everything. And you mentioned Siri. You
Mhm.
mentioned, the lift. What happens if the lift stops?
Mhm.
My first advice to anybody here is don't panic. That's the first advice. Second piece of advice is that at this point of time, given the rapid pace in which change is happening, and it doesn't mean that if you knew one kind of computing at one point of time, that's your lifelong learning. It's not.
Mhm.
So lifelong learning means actually being able to be in touch with and on top of what's about to happen or what is happening. And oftentimes, what I realize is a problem is that a lot of these systems are not synchronous, as in they don't go from one level to the other in a gradual curve.
Hmm.
So earlier this year, I had written a blog post which was very appreciated by a lot of my friends who saw it. Was that I had looked at the world. I had borrowed from this novel by Ernest Hemingway. He's
Hmm.
written a book called The Sun Also Rises, and there was this
Hmm.
line on
Hmm.
how do you go bankrupt. And the one of those fellows said that first two ways: first gradually and then suddenly.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
you knew that the tech revolution is on us, right?
Hmm.
The word
Hmm.
ITES, BPO, these have been there for about 20 odd years, 20, 25 odd years. You've had giants of technology in the services sector for almost 30 odd years, right?
Hmm.
You knew that there was a startup ecosystem building up also in the last 15 years. But what you're seeing in the last 18 months, you know, with almost 100 unicorns in the business of creating value using high tech, that is the sudden part of it. So today, everything that you do, whether you're ordering your medicines online, ordering your health insurance in your car, pre-booking various things.
Or even
Um,
pizza or something from any of these delivery guys. You got to know tech. Without that, you
not
can't.
not to mention figuring out where to go for your booster shot if you need
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. That is what. During COVID, I have seen people
Right.
that they got information that you can walk in, and then you can, and then suddenly they come to know, no, no, no. This second shot you cannot go as a walk-in one, but you got to register yourself, and they can't do it from there. So and then so it is a very that is where I ask that governments everywhere are trying to help as much as possible, and tech is a big enabler, but
Yes, it is.
but how do you bring about, especially in a country, अपने देश का अगर एग्जांपल लें, कि इतनी असमानता है टेक यूसेज, टेक को यूज करने के तरीके में, जानने में बहुत सारी, जैसे इट्स लाइक कैश एंड वॉलेट, मेनी अ टाइम्स कैश इज सो इजी टू यूज। आप समझ, तो टेक्नोलॉजी भी कई बार वैसा हो जाता है कि मैं जब सामने खड़ा हूं तो ये रहा मेरा कार्ड और ये रहा मैं, तो वहां पे फिर मैं थर्ड चीज को लाने की क्या जरूरत है? दैट इज वेयर आई वांटेड टू गेट योर एक्सपर्ट ओपिनियन ऑन।
So this is again to do with progression. I remember when I was a very small, I had gone to a mela. गांव में
ओके।
मेला होता है, तो
हाँ।
मेले में आई थिंक somebody had given me a 5 rupee note, 5 रुपया का नोट उन दिनों में चलता था. That was very big money in those days. I remember going to one of these guys, वो होता है ना candy floss,
यस यस।
candy floss दिया, and he gave me change in cash, and I said no, 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 give me coins. Because the next counter and the next counter and the next counter were only taking coins, right?
ओके।
So cash was also, paper money. Paper money से पहले coin के बाद cash के बाद आया card के बाद आया digital wallet, and now you're talking about official digital currency, right?
Yeah, in
Uh,
fact, I'll tell you now, even those hackers, they are demanding कि क्रिप्टो में पे कर दो आप, तो
हाँ,
है आपका मैं अकाउंट रहने दूंगा. So
हाँ,
you see, even
हाँ.
I guess our legal system in the budget, they haven't named the word crypto. They have used word something like digital.
Digital, virtual digital asset.
Yes,
Virtual
but
digital asset.
आगे आने वाले दिनों में, I guess the way the world is moving, at some point in time you may see some sort of things in India also. And now this is again an advanced version or a difficult version that I'm talking right now.
No, you'll be surprised, and this is the other interesting thing about technology, and I have to share this at this point of time, that there is no additional benefit from having started earlier. It's not a must that okay, so you know the technology, you've learned it first, you are the pioneer of this technology, and therefore you have an additional advantage. No,
Hmm.
I if you look at the names which I'm going to take you through the journey. just
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah,
tell you where we've been and where we are coming from and where we are about to go,
yeah.
you'll realize that every time in every genre, there is a new name which has come up, right?
Hmm.
And the old names have all gone away, right?
Hmm.
And the reason is that, as I said, that this is discontinuous, this is rapid, and it's also extremely decentralized. So there
Hmm.
is no saying that, okay, if I go to this one university or that one college and I will get the best information and the best knowledge. No, it's the users which will decide what is the best case for them, right? The technology world uses a word called MVP, which is the minimum value proposition. Now, you
Hmm.
may have a great app, you may have a great logic, but that might not succeed because somebody else doesn't have that kind of a great app, but it works for them, right? And the larger number of people who accepted that point, which you mentioned, that okay, there is so many people who are already on tech, but what about people who are just coming on? Are they at a disadvantage? My proposition here is that no, they don't. They are not only not at a disadvantage. Like for instance, let's just take a live case, right? You've been a broadcast journalist for almost 20 odd years, correct? You've seen technology change from how it used to be in your studio, how it used
Hmm.
to be with cameras, the lighting, the kind of connectivity. And now at this point of time, we're doing this on a laptop.
Right,
Somebody else in a village is possibly listening to this on the phone via
right.
data stream. Somebody
Hmm.
else might be creating this kind of content, right? Because again, as I said, that the computing power inside your phone, the computing power on the network, the kind of data connections that you have, anybody who's just discovering this entire thing right now, okay, who does not know how to write an email, who's never written a message, can also create very effective content. Okay. And the way this entire journey, as I am seeing it, is traversing, is that the premium is on the content. It's
Hmm.
not on the channel, right? It's not on the hardware. Earlier, it used to be the
Absolutely.
hardware used to cost. Like the old stories of computers was, one computer would take up a whole room. The same, the Apollo 11 logic that I gave you. That that computer, that one whole room computer, is inside your phone
Hmm.
today.
Hmm.
Uh, so there is, in a way, what is happening is technology has this amazing ability to democratize,
Hmm.
and the person who's coming in last has the best experience.
Right, right. Jay, you were about to take us on some journey through some slides or
Yeah,
something? Yeah,
yeah.
you carry on. No problem
Let me
if you want.
just take you through, because I thought this is a thought process which your viewers will enjoy.
Yeah, yeah. The whole idea is to get to a situation where tech as an enabler works best and the human part also stays there. So I get it. Yes.
So what I'm just giving you a glimpse is, where we have started from and where we are headed. This is
Sure.
the play that I was talking about, And by the way, all the slides which I'm sharing have been picked up from blog posts and websites. Some of them are
Okay.
given below.
Right.
So if your viewers are interested, they can go and read up the entire thing. So if you
Okay.
just for your viewers, what we think is the internet now was
Hmm.
something very different in the 70s and till the 80s. It was a defense application, right,
Right.
in the US.
Hmm.
The public part of the web came with Netscape in 94, AOL,
Hmm.
America Online in
Hmm.
1989, and Yahoo in 94. And then you saw the Microsoft Explorers and the Amazons and eBay, PayPal. Google
Hmm.
came in 98. So this was the first version of the web where the entire thought was that let's just take our data and put it out there. Okay.
Hmm.
Google was possibly one of the first solutions which came out, which was trying to make sense of how to look for these, data pieces. So it was the entire logic was built around how is a library organized, And around that time, you had a huge amount of exuberance, and which also created what was known as a dot-com bust in 2000,
Mm,
where a
mm,
lot of these dot-coms went out of business.
mm,
But that did not stop anything, because immediately after that, or during that period, you had this, a user-generated content platforms coming up. Blogger came out in
mm,
2000.
mm, mm.
Wikipedia, which I think is now more a source of information than the old encyclopedias, came
Right,
started
right.
in 2001. Um, the mapping software Google Maps came in after an acquisition post Google's IPO in 2005. YouTube again came in 2005, and I believe one of your streams is going on YouTube.
Yeah, yeah,
Flickr,
yeah. Yes, yes, absolutely right.
which is photo sharing, happened at that time. Also at that time, came in social networking. Now, social networking came out of this distributed architecture model. So things like, for instance, LinkedIn, which came in 2002, Twitter, Facebook in 2004, Etsy, which was a sales platform, came in 2005, and MySpace in 2003. So all these things came and used this distributed architecture model, that I will store my pictures somewhere, my text somewhere, and we will get together and do something together. And
Mm,
in the 2010s, you saw this value equation happen, right? Suddenly
mm,
you
mm,
started hearing about FANG, so which
mm,
was Facebook, which is now Meta, Google, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, right?
mm,
Twitter, Tesla also coming in some way, Microsoft. You just saw this huge thing in terms of big tech. So
mm,
what
mm,
was happening was that the open web, which you saw till 2000, became
mm,
the corporate web. So these became platforms. You
mm,
did
mm.
not search on the net, you searched on Google. You did not make friends, you've made friends on Facebook, right?
Right,
And you did not send out a press release, you tweeted. So,
right.
so this was that play. And at this point of time where we are coming, we are moving to what is now Web
Yeah, it's
3.0.
nice. Sorry to interrupt. It's nice to see Web 3.0 because this is the big trend for 2022. This and NFT, you know,
Yeah,
and Meta. So these are
yeah.
yeah. So it's
So,
nice to see Web 2.0, and you must tell more about Web 3.0.
So Web 3.0 actually takes that platform logic and turns it on its head. So when you
Right.
take the platform logic and put it on the head, which means that you are no longer going to be looking at Chrome as a browser. You're going to look at a decentralized, autonomous bunch of platforms,
Hmm, hmm.
because at this point of time, you don't want any intermediary in your conversation, right?
Right.
I am talking to Ajay means I am talking to Ajay. I don't want to be talking to Ajay via something. So that's the key thing which is happening, that you don't want a platform. You want to go peer to peer in a
Hmm,
distributed architecture.
hmm,
And when you
hmm,
go there, so everything changes. So banking changes, messaging changes, content changes, gaming, you mentioned, gaming changes. So you're not going to say Second Life to create a play on
hmm.
Meta or Metaverse. You're going into a decentraland, okay? Which is
Okay.
completely, I mean, it's not owned by any one person. It's like you're breaking that ledger. So the ledger becomes open. It does not belong to a bank. It belongs to everybody else who's part of it. Similarly, in payments, file storage, browser data, everything. And now look at this piece, which am specifically putting here because I'm active in the space.
Hmm,
When you
hmm,
see the kind of investment which is going into blockchain companies, because people have
hmm,
figured that starting from 2021, especially through the lockdown, the amount
hmm,
of data people are sharing with each other, the amount
hmm,
of activity which has gone online or which is happening because it's online is
hmm.
phenomenal, right?
Right.
And this thinking is actually changing the way propositions are built. So, a future technology company will be behaving very differently from what you've seen in the past, right? And I'm putting this over here just to give you a sense that how active is this space,
Yeah.
how large the unicorn
It's
space
very
is.
very active, Jay, because I've
Yeah,
been getting many active invitations to join blockchain groups,
right,
WhatsApp
right,
groups.
right, right.
I'm
So,
just joking, but yeah, I'm just
so it's not just ones and twos. There is an entire revolution which is happening. Now,
Right.
you can always ask, "Okay, so what do I do? I mean, I don't know anything about this." My proposition to you and to everybody who's watching is don't worry. When it's your time, it will come to you. And by the time it comes to you, it will be in a much more mature state of being used than anything which is happening right now. So you can, you know, not worry about this.
Right. 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 Uh, but Jay, tell me one thing, because every time we move towards tech as a high tech, then every time I remember the human part of it and try to find some sort of a way कि उसमें human being ऐसा ना हो कि he becomes a bystander and tech becomes the center of everything. So I will try to bring back the human, and I'll talk about the workspace. Okay, the what's happening in the work. I'll, let's look at a scenario like this. Earlier, somebody who was 40, 50, 60, he was considered to be a man of wisdom in any area of work, चाहे चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंसी हो, प्रोफेशनल हो, किसी भी लाइन में हो, उसको लोग वैल्यू करते थे कि इनको जानकारी है, ही इज द मास्टर, वी कैन लुक अप टू हिम, मैन ऑफ विजडम, एक्सपीरियंस, मैन ऑफ एक्सपीरियंस. ठीक है. नाउ टेक हैज कम इन, and first, earlier on, his wisdom was not dependent on his understanding of any tech. So today, even if the best man of wisdom or experience has to know that tech to be eligible for even doing some work. For example, अगर आप कोई, because I have seen it from very close, कोई चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट है, उसको काम करना है, तो किसी का भी अकाउंट जाके उसने मैनेज कर लिया उन्होंने, एंड 8-10 अकाउंट मैनेज कर लिया, इवन इफ व्हेन ही इज इन ए रिटायरिंग मोड, तो घर परिवार अच्छे से चल गया उनका. ठीक है, स्मॉल स्मॉल प्लेसेस पे मैंने बहुत देखा है. अभी द मैन नोज एवरीथिंग, बट ही हैज टू नो ऑल द tallies and खाता बही and all those, but they have become online. टेक की चीज हो गई है, आपको जानना होगा.
No, here you're making a very, very interesting point. And the point here is that what is your learning worth? And when I say something like this, I'm being very provocative here, because I remember I'm from the early 90s, when I still remember during economic liberalization in the city where I was, there was massive strikes.
My whole concern is that I am aggrieved to see that why has that common ground not come up? मतलब
no, it's actually very simple if you want to put it this way. The simplicity part of it is in the operating part of it. If you are in your 40s or 50s and you're not engaged with tech, obviously the person who's into tech has experience of the tools to be used. Let's just take, for instance, the point that you mentioned, chartered accountant. He will need to know at this point of time how to file GST, how to use Tally. That is one part. That is the operations part. But somebody with, as a chartered accountant with say 30 or 25 years of experience, do you think his expertise would be in that, or would it be in being able to interpret the laws, interpret the provisions for the benefit of his clients or her clients, depending on his or her past experience of how to do it, right? Now, if you say that there's a new asset category and it's called crypto, and Sarkar ne bol diya hai ki now you can invest there, all you have to do is pay 30% and 1% TDS. Is that looking like something which is valuable? Now, you decide as the person who's managing your client's portfolio whether it is valuable or not. Now, does that come from you understanding technology, or does that come from you understanding your client?
Right.
Now, I'm making a distinction here, which is that technology does have a pathway. There's no doubt about it, right?
Right.
A lot of I remember, see, I work in the digital space, and there was a time in the 90s or earlier, people would say that 50% of all advertising works. I don't know which 50%.
Which 50%, right?
This was the old advertising saying. It would be spoken with a lot of humor, never with humility, humor and arrogance, if you ask me. But
Hmm.
today, because I'm active in the space and I know how these things work, I can say that if you're wasting 50%, you don't know how advertising works.
Right, right.
Because today there is enough data, enough ability for you to figure out. There is performance marketing. There is so many ways of figuring out, did Ajay Khudania get to see the message that I wanted him to see? And what did he do with the message? Did he buy the product? Did he ignore it? How many times did he ignore it before he bought it? And after buying it, what did he do with it? Did he share it on Facebook or Twitter, and did he endorse it? Or did he put up an Instagram reel and said, "Oh, I have a code 300 for a 100 rupee discount voucher"? See, today, when you say that I don't know how it works, means that your data is not correct, or you have not studied enough, or you have not bothered to broad base your use case enough to figure out what works. And that is the beauty of tech. And people who are in their 40s and 50s in various parts of learning and various parts of work, um, be- my suggestion would be that if you don't know tech, find somebody who's willing to share the tech knowledge with you, where who you can share your subject matter or domain knowledge with. It's
Okay,
not, it was never ever a
okay.
single person universe. All right.
Hmm, hmm, hmm,
Even in this case that we're talking about, you've seen how a broadcast studio moved to where you are. If I consider KAJ Masterclass to be a broadcast studio,
hmm, hmm,
nobody does it themselves, right?
hmm.
If somebody says that, no, this is what I do and 24/7, this is what I do, that person is probably very, very good at what he or she does, because he or
Absolutely.
she would have mastered
Hmm,
A,
hmm,
broadcasting, B, content, C, promotions, D, algorithms, E, the target audience that this content is going to, right?
hmm, hmm,
As far as I'm concerned, that's a 5% job.
hmm, hmm.
And there are four people who are the best in each of these things. Now, when you're looking at it from the common man point of view, and you go to any place, like for instance, I go to a Kirana store, and the Kirana store guy, I find he's completely comfortable using all these apps, all the wallet apps. He's also got a couple of apps where he does ordering in, because there's a huge amount of supply chain apps also
Hmm.
given to him via various large aggregators. And then he's sharing with me that, hey, you don't really have to come here because COVID and all that. This is my WhatsApp number, and you can just mail me what you want. I mean, message me what you want.
Yes, 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 yes.
And then I find the guys created a photo list, which
Hmm,
he
hmm,
updates every week
hmm, hmm,
on, this is what I've got now. This is my new latest release. Now, it's not as if he's going out of business.
hmm.
No, he's figured out how to roll with it. You say that, look, I have this kind of a play. This is what I'm doing. You will find n number of other partners, vendors who are willing to support you in your endeavor. Because new tech is not successful unless it has users, right? The
Right.
biggest thing which any new technology platform does, and we call it in our language, it's called Coca Cola. Cost of client acquisition and cost of lead acquisition. So if you haven't been effectively gotten your clients on board, if you haven't been effectively been able to convert the leads on board,
Hmm.
you're not a successful tech play, right?
Right.
So these people know this. The people who are just coming in, that, okay, so how do I get this person on board? So it is actually up to the tech guys to teach you. If you remember early days, there used to be a huge amount of my time. There used to be a huge amount of people who are learning platforms
Right.
like Microsoft, like
Hmm.
PowerPoint, Excel. There's still these courses floating around. Why?
Yes.
Because if
Hmm.
you don't use these courses, Microsoft doesn't get a revenue. If
Right.
you don't learn how to use Adobe Illustrator or Adobe Studio, Adobe doesn't have a reason to exist. So I'm just countering your point.
No,
without
but this
you
is to educate people about the product, because if you don't know how to operate it, say like it's like a tutorial, you mean, isn't it?
not just a tutorial, you need to have users.
Okay.
No technology can survive without users.
So no, so
If
is technology trying to enable people, or is technology or a lot of technology around trying to make what you call customers out of humans?
users and customers, yes, of course, because you will use and then you will pay. It's never you will it will now the point is, of course, pay per use. Okay, now who is going to pay per use? I have never used this platform. Why will I do it? I have never watched a film or serial on OTT. Why will I do it?
Hmm.
Somebody has shared me a link, somebody has invited me,
Hmm.
I have seen it and I liked it, and therefore
Mhm.
I do it. My telecom operator is giving it to me for free. In your
Right.
package of 499, there is this, and this OTT platform free. Then I will go and watch, right? Whose cost of customer acquisition it is? It is the OTT platform's cost of customer acquisition. Because without the customer, without the user, without the creator, none of these platforms work. The whole point of these platforms, and you mentioned IoT, the whole point of IoT is logistics, is about being able to track, is about, and IoT is almost in every piece, like even in agriculture, it is there. It works only if it can create consistent, sustainable value for the human life. The way you live, the way you work, the way you play, if technology does not create that substantial difference, you will possibly not accept it. And one more point I make to illustrate it is that, have you wondered, like for the last 2 years, a huge part of humanity has been working from home, working from hometown,
Yeah, yeah,
working
yeah.
in from their homes.
Right.
My first fear was in March 2020 is, A, will our power systems be there? Will our domestic power networks be able to take this pressure? Because so many people are there 24/7 in a lockdown situation. Will the data network survive? Will they be able to take the load? Because this is the kind of quality of conversation which we are
They
having.
take the load on weekends, isn't it? Saturday on Sundays, they do take the load.
So look at it, like not only did they take the load, they, I don't know how many times you had an outage. You did not have a significant outage. As in, okay, 48 hours no power, 48 hours no internet. I mean, because of technology. So technology companies have also been able to give you almost an uninterrupted service in this period. Similarly, to for look at your delivery apps, look at your, okay, a few breaks here and there. Look at the way the COVID portal has worked for you. The Arogya Setu app has worked for you. I mean, I think it's phenomenal,
Yeah,
phenomenal
yeah.
in
I'm
terms
not
of.
I'm not discounting the contribution of tech. Obviously, without tech, we would not be talking the way we are talking right now, or getting
Correct,
getting what about getting our message across to so many people across the world right now.
correct.
What my concern that is the human part of
Hmm.
us,
Hmm.
getting delineated or getting away or from us itself because of tech. That is the one part, and how we can reduce it, especially for people who are in smaller areas. A lot of people still do not have phones. A huge
Hmm.
number of people do not have
Yes,
phones. Forget about
yes,
smartphones. So I'm talking
yes.
about, that is where the common man, I'm talking about that. How do we bring, like on the phone, you remember during telephone connectivity, there was a particular word called data access, something like access deficit, like that people who are not able to get that access, there was some sort of a charge also for
So there
that.
was, in fact, there continues to be in this country. There is something called the USO fund, Universal Service Obligation.
Yeah,
This was
yeah, yeah.
developed, I think, in the mid 90s when the mobile revolution started in the country, and the government of India, while licensing spectrum for the use for by these mobile operators, had put this thing saying that we would like ubiquitous access. We would
Hmm.
like to see the last person in this country have a workable connection to the world of mobile.
Right,
Um, if you see the places which are outside the grid, and you will hear, especially during COVID lockdown, you will hear of stories of kids who went and climbed a water tower with their laptop to listen to their classes, online classes,
right, right.
because they did not have network in their village, school, etc. Now, it's completely to do with how the new operators who are there and how they are planning their networks. Because unless and until you're able to create a business case at the bottom of the pyramid, you will never be able to access the fortune at the bottom of the pyramid, right? Now, for instance, there is data out there saying that, okay, 90% of the, okay, 3% of the world controls 90% of the asset, which is because of the concentration of wealth which has happened. And
Right.
people will say that this is because of tech and venture capitalism going in this space. But one of the things which I often mention is that you are leaving out 90% of that user population. That's like adding 100% to your current market cap, wealth, technology. So if 90% of your users are not inside this, uh, you know, user base, which is currently sustaining all these high valuations, think of what you can do if you can bring them in. And that brings
Absolutely.
me to the next point, which is a fairly extensive piece of work which is happening globally. I'm not going to say just India. India is, of course, doing fantastically well in
See,
this.
in that regard, if you ask me, Jay,
Hmm.
in
No, no,
terms
let
of,
me finish my point. Let
okay,
me finish
sure,
my
sure.
point. I'm talking about a uh, campaign, global campaign on what is known as technology for good. Now, what does this
Right,
mean? Technology for good means using the benefits of all the technology which you're seeing around you, including things like mRNA vaccines. You know, mRNA is also technology, right? It's
right,
coming out of
right.
manipulating genes. How do you use this to reach the largest number of people? And in this, I will say, I will mention two things which I'm very proud of has happened in India. One is the Unified Payment Interface, which is UPI, which has
Right.
now become the largest system for payment digital transactions anywhere in the world. The second part is the new thing which these people have launched, which is called ONDC, Open Network for Digital Commerce.
Hmm,
Now,
hmm.
when you take that piece in and say that, okay, this is open, the APIs are open, start developing things which will reach the bottom of the pyramid, what the government of India has done is unlocked the vault to the bottom of the pyramid.
Right,
Now,
right,
it's just if, and I know a lot of these entrepreneurs which I'm talking to are actually looking at it very, very seriously with tech for good in mind, because tech for good means two or three things. A, how do you reduce waste? B, how do you eliminate the negative impact or reduce the negative impact of climate action, climate crisis, which is facing all of us today? C, how do you create some amount of learning and good outcomes for more people? You know, how do you get more people into the workplace? How do you get more people skilled? How do you get more people literate and educated to look after themselves?
hmm.
And finally, how do you create a more inclusive, equitable scenario around? Right? You don't want to be in a situation there where you have some people with everything and a lot of people with nothing. So that's
Right.
where tech for good comes from. And I think there's a fairly strong awareness which is there, not just in India, but across the world on what tech should do. And I think
Yeah.
that's the point which you're bringing up, that what
Absolutely.
should
Yeah,
tech
yeah,
do
yeah, yeah.
for people.
Right, right. That is where I was talking about, the government's announcement in budget about opening many educational channels, maybe around 200 if I uh, remember correctly, or more than that. Now, because not all those companies or who have invested so much of money will be able to take care of that huge chunk of population in the same manner that the government has the capacity to do. So I guess they have realized that education, especially during COVID, when education went online, that not every household and people with a limited amount of income, especially in the rural areas, uh, we had access to that level. And this is, I guess, an understanding in that regard. I want to understand from you that technology companies, they do have a notion of profit, but at the same time, I guess when everybody starts with the invention of new technology, they also have that vision to solve problems, isn't it? That's why you bring on new technology. You are able to think of something new. Do they
No,
find?
yeah,
Yeah,
carry on. Finish your
yeah.
question.
Do they, or you think that they are also aware that there is a deep divide that is happening socially, or in terms of people who have not been able to keep pace with the same technology available, but people will, it is not possible, it is not possible. Somebody who is using a very high tech device and somebody who has not even seen it, he will not be able, but they have to consume services in that same mode, because it's like, for example, COVID. Now everybody, a lot of people do not have phones, but they had to get their thing done online, because that was the best way to do it. I want to understand, how do we find and bring everybody together, as if there was, as if there is no differentiation or a class divide because of technology.
So this is something which has been a topic. I mean, I don't know. I think ever since the first experience of Web 1.0, right?
Hmm, hmm,
When
hmm.
thanks to a internet connection, you could access libraries across the world versus you sitting in a village and the library in your village doesn't even have books, right? It's been used as a goshala.
Yes.
Okay, because I'm also in the I also work in the social sector where we look at creating community learning centers
Hmm,
with books, with computers, with sustainability models which are local to the community. Now, the interesting thing, and because I work on that layer as well through my role as founder trustee of Read India,
hmm, hmm, hmm.
I have a I would not even say a bird's eye vision. I have a very direct vision into what's happening there. Two things are happening there. A is that everybody now knows that if you have a smartphone, a particular side of the world opens up to you. There is a reason why there is a rush, and that rush continues at the bottom of the pyramid to
Hmm.
get yourself a smartphone to be able to afford a data connection, right?
Right.
Because once you've done that, and this I've seen even early 2000s, and we had at that point of time I was in a heading marketing in a mobile company.
Hmm, hmm, hmm.
uh, we had gone out and noticed through various studies that if you had a network set up in a particular play, the local GDP, GSDP would go up by as much as 2%.
Hmm,
And
hmm.
that I'm talking about 2003, 2004, right? I would go on out on a limb and say that that multiplier exists even now. And if there are areas which do not have network, if there are populations which do not have access or do not have the affordability to go and get this, it this itself is a venture proposition, right? Because this is the kind of bets which a lot of funds do, and there is an entire classification of funds, ESG funds, which actually work in this space. That how do I take this, create something which has a multiplier effect and therefore multiplier impact on market cap, right? Because remember, everybody you're looking at as a beneficiary, the moment that beneficiary becomes a user or a consumer, the entire approach changes, right? And I think there is a lot of good work which is already happening thanks to various organizations, various tech organizations, and their CSR contributions into making these experiments happen. But my thought process, Ajay, here is slightly different.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially the last 2 years of COVID has brought
Hmm.
in a couple of massive realizations. Massive realizations in the sense that at this point of time, what is education? And you already have a new education policy. You already have these announcements which you made, referred to during the budget. You're talking about a sea change, and it's not just
Right.
something that's been happening in India. This is something which you can look out from a global point of view. There is a sea change in terms of what is education. There needs to be a complete transformation in terms of what kind of skills, because if you're looking at education as a gateway to skills and a gateway into employment, that entire thought process has to change. Because you've
Right.
had these app companies which have been selling programming courses to 5-year-olds, right?
Right.
You are looking at creating 12-year-old coders. Why?
Right.
Because you want them to become entrepreneurs or software engineers in their later life. And I want to go back to that point which you earlier raised, that what happens to this guy who's been 25 years a chartered accountant and is not up to speed with what's happening in the tool universe. My point here is that there already are, thanks to technology, two kinds of people: people who use the tools and people who invent them.
Okay.
Right now, the people who invent the tools are different from the people who use the tools. People who invent the tools are not always technologists. People
Okay.
who invent the tools are also oftentimes very deep thinkers in their own local domain areas, right? And
For
I
example,
see, for
can you?
example,
Yeah. Yeah. Just.
if you just look at this entire vaccine uh, pathway or the RT-PCR pathway, there's a beautiful article I read a couple of days back on Dr. Hargobind Khurana,
Okay.
one of
Okay.
India's first. Actually, he was living in the US when he got a Nobel Prize
Nobel
for
Prize. Yeah.
coming out with the DNA structure. He is the
Okay.
gentleman who won the Nobel Prize for discovering that there is a human DNA structure.
Okay.
Basis his research, today's mRNA tests and the RT-PCR tests are done.
Okay. Okay.
Basis his work.
Okay.
Now,
Okay.
when he
Got it.
was
Got it.
working in the 1950s and 60s,
Got it.
computing was not even there. But
Right.
without that core thought that, okay, this is the structure of the human genome, all this computation, please understand one thing: technology is a bunch of tools. Even with AI, even with machine learning, at the end of the day, what these tools can do is what you program them to do, they can do better and better and better and better, right? But somebody still has to program. Somebody still has to say that this is the distance I have to go to climb on top of the tree and get my school online school classes. Somebody still has to say that there is an opportunity in bringing it here. So those people who are actually looking at these opportunities or coming up independently, thinking independently of the problems which are facing, whatever it be, it could be climate, it could be agriculture, it could be education, it could be society, social change, equity, distribution, whatever you say. Technology is an enabler.
Right.
It is an enabler. It empowers large people at scale, and definitely it creates employment and value, right? But
Right.
all
Yes. 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 Yes.
but
Carry
it does not exist in a vacuum. It does not
on.
exist in isolation. That point which you mentioned, that what happens if I forget the password and the computer forgets me,
Hmm.
you think it's your
My house
loss.
forgets me. My house forgets me.
Your house forgets you.
Yeah.
It's the house's interest to remember you.
Right. Right. So, Jay, let me get look at it from our young generation's perspective, a point of view.
Yeah,
We have been brought up different way. We have seen things at little more on the ground. Our young generation today are very tech savvy. They have been using tech from day one, and
correct,
that's the way they've seen the world. You can't,
correct.
there's no right or wrong about it, and they're
Hmm,
very good at it in
hmm,
using those tools.
hmm.
Some say that many people today's time, because of so much use of tech, socially, they get distance away from people or from those deep affection with other people around them. They become so attuned to technology.
mm,
Now there will be a time, in some time, maybe 10 years, 20 years into their own lives, that they will find that they are nowhere in, and they're lagging behind in terms of then the younger generation, the younger lot. Now today's people, we still know how to survive without a phone. We still know we can still get our TV working without a remote. Maybe it depends on the TV that we have nowadays. But what about such? I'm just trying to look at it from that, from social angle. How do you see this generation who will become, slightly lesser than the young generation of, say, 20 years from now? And how do they survive from a social angle?
the interesting part is that exactly the same way that you see them active on technology is also the amount of time they switch off.
Okay.
I don't know if you go to any of these social media platforms like Instagram, etc. You will find that detox, digital detox. Right,
Okay.
I'm on a digital detox vacation.
Mhm.
Last week I read 7 books, or I am in this hill station without my phone. I don't need the network. Right?
How real is that? Is it some sort of a new fad,
It
say
is.
story or a
No,
message?
it's. I wouldn't say it's a fad, but I would say that there is, as with technology. See, one of the things which happens with the camera is, one is this entire fundamental logic of turning the camera to yourself, which is
Okay.
the selfie culture. The other is taking the camera where you were going and showing the
Mhm.
world new places, new things, new discoveries that you're discovering for yourself. So, you have this food selfie where you're taking a picture of the food before you even eat it. No, what I'm mentioning is that with the digital engagement, what is also happening is people are taking vacations or going off with strangers. Today, you have apps which are,
Right.
portals
Solo
where
trip.
people are meeting people, making friends, marrying, settling down. So you're using digital for a non-digital experience, right?
Hmm.
And
Right. Yeah, that's well
and
put.
and also you're using your going off the grid with the same person or the same
Hmm.
experience, because you realize that being in the grid is important for certain reasons, but you can also be existing off the grid. So you'll have these people going off on treks, hikes. I don't think our generation was so much into going to buy motorcycle, go to Ladakh. I think
Right. Right. Right.
our generation
Within
was more about buy. If you can afford to buy a motorcycle, please make sure you have the money to put petrol in the
if
tank.
you can afford it, then your parents need to be assured that you won't hurt yourself
Correct.
or hurt anybody else.
Absolutely. So the priorities have changed, and having said that, what I do see is, see, it's always this way. I can go back and say that whenever, and I've had good time to delve into history, looking at past pandemics. And one of the things is that what any pandemic does, and especially something which is once in a century kind of a thingy, is changes all the assumptions around. So
Correct.
what's going to come out of this is a very different set of awarenesses before it settles down, right? Before you realize that, okay, this is what I can do with tech, and this is what my life can be, and this is what my new priorities are. And there always is a fairly strong nostalgia element, as in, okay, this is how life used to be, but what life is and what life will be are possibly going to be completely revolutionary. And we
Okay.
haven't even, in the next 5 6 years, we're going to see more change than we've ever seen before.
Okay. So your closing thoughts on the future that is going to be in terms of tech and people who are less tech savvy.
I think as see, tech needs, as I said, that tech needs users. So it is in tech's interest to get more and more users. So people who are less tech savvy are actually going to be adopted by tech because they need the users. They need users in many, many ways. I'll just give you a small example. There's an entire industry which was built in this country, which put a lot of men and women to work from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m.
Right.
Why? Because the service industry of the Western world needed the data connectivity so that the services in the Western world could be delivered out of countries like India, right? An entire business case, an entire business logic, an entire awareness came out of that, right? Similarly, as business cases become more and more developed, and as I keep saying that you can't have, you want valuation, you get users. You don't get users on 100,000. You don't get great valuation on just 100,000 users. You are living in a country of 1.3 billion. If you do not have 80% of the user, or if you can have 80% of the users with you, then you've got a seriously strong business case. And so, therefore, it makes business sense for tech to invest in reducing the gap, or number one. Number two, when you do that, um, it's always transformational. Because I've worked both in the social sector as well as in the tech sector, and wherever I've seen it happening, it's had a multiplier effect. So, whenever you put in these assets, whenever you put in these investments, and it's great that the government is talking about it in terms of demonstrating the ambition, but more importantly, once the entrepreneurs get involved and they can see the path to profits, then the investment gets into the ground. That's when the jobs get created. That's when training happens. My only concern is that we are about to see so much change. um, I hope we are able to keep the priorities right? Because we're already going through pretty much cataclysmic 2 years of pandemic. We've already gone through almost 2 years of pandemic. Um, there is a impact of climate change on the back. There is going to be a great amount of uncertainty before we can see that, okay, this is a path of peace and progress. And for that to happen, there needs to be a lot more participation, a lot more multi-stakeholder engagements. We haven't even spoken. Whenever we say tech, it's about two men talking. Where are the women?
Right.
And why aren't we speaking more in terms of what is the impact of tech in the lives of specific groups, right? If you say rural women, teenage girls, how are you improving? How are you doing something there? And I think
What
there's a
you talk
huge
about
opportunity.
that, Jay, I think that's a big thing that we must focus on, and we got that bandwidth because we don't have what you call people like us on channels like ours. We don't have that compulsion, or that uh, compulsion to be to look at things under certain constraints as such. So this gives a good platform, for us to discuss things that are really relevant. But tell me one thing. You answered that question about the future, perhaps as a person from the tech sector. Would your assessment change if you are looking at it from a person who also is involved in the social sector?
Not really, because as I said that 13 years back when I first set up a library in a village which was 2.5 kilometers away from the nearest village school, and fell into the baseline assessment criteria, as in
Mhm.
the village had to have an income level of such and a participation level of another, and you can go into the website of Read India and check out the criteria.
Mhm. Mhm.
um, and then when we got support and set up the first computer lab in that village library, of course, I've been setting up computer labs in village schools for the last 20 years, actually,
That's
in various CSR courses. I can give you one anecdote, and this is from the first project I did, which was in '99. I was working in a telecom software company which had SEZ, the software export zone registration.
Mhm.
And one of the CSR projects we wanted to do, and that time CSR was not even a word.
Mhm.
So we wanted to do a project in the local school, local village school, with to bridge the digital divide. That here you have people from the top institutes of the country creating top class software for the world, and can we do something in a village school nearby? I was one of the major architects of that program, so
Mhm.
I've put it on my blog. The first things that we did when we went into the school was repair the toilets,
Mhm.
because at that point of time, if you have used those old computers needed air conditioning, and you couldn't have air conditioning. You needed a dust-free environment, and
Absolutely.
if you didn't have children washing their hands before they went to the computer lab and they're washing their feet, you probably would have breakdowns. So we actually first worked on setting up, bathrooms, washrooms for these kids. Then we did a lot of work to change regulations to make that donation possible. At that time, it was not even possible to donate computers those days. And then get software engineers to volunteer their time to teach these children in class 5, class 6 on how to do basic things like run a paint program, right? And many years later, when I went back, I realized, I mean, I had moved jobs, etc., and careers by then. I went and saw the facility. Not only was it perfectly in place with a lot of upgradation and support by the company and others as well, but some of the older kids, the kids who were, in class 5, had grown up, settled in life, and were still associated and remembered. And then they said that, because I learned this, I also learned that, and I figured out what to do with my life, and now I'm doing this. So, a couple of things which I'm extremely convinced about is the spirit of human enterprise and the human
Right.
endeavor. So, whenever faced with change, you will find, and which is usual, and I think that first question which you asked is also very telling. Youngsters don't have any preconceived notions, so they like learning new things. They don't have a problem of breaking things, right? They will put their hands, ganda ho gaya to kya hua, toot gaya to kya hua. I mean, that
Mhm.
comes in later. For older people it's a little scary, because toot gaya to kya hoga. But the
Mhm.
point is that if you can take that toot gaya to kya hoga piece out and go ahead, break things.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. If you are afraid of that, you
uh,
won't use them properly.
so if you're comfortable
Don't break
breaking things
humans.
and moving, you will be able to handle technology and use it to better your life.
Absolutely.
And that's, I think, the key thing. And this period has been extremely tough for families, for human relations, things which you're talking about. Technology has, in a way, been able to support to a certain extent. But as I used to say back in my day, you can't fax a handshake.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's well put. And I guess Jay, in your thoughts, you have actually brought out a lot of things. My concern will always be whenever dealing with tech, will always be it's like that the last man should also be thought about. Uh, that technology, whether they are able to take care of not, but I guess the governments world over or anywhere else or our communities, you know, somewhere they have to come forward and ensure that with time it's not about tech as such. I would lay any blame on any particular aspect of our lives, but the way we are making our progress, our growth is somewhere, humans are becoming more lonely, more, there are more cases of depression, aloofness is there, and you may have thousands and thousands of people in your social network, but it's also important that people around you should actually be, you should have people around you who are genuinely concerned about you. Your thousands of people on your social networks, will not bother if you vanish for 100 years. But people around you, if you vanish for 2 hours, they will certainly start feeling it. That's the technology I would want to have around me, that the home should not forget the user of that home. That would be,
I'll extend it further. If you look at where we come from, our generation comes from. I'm not so confident about the next one. The chai ke tapri.
hmm,
The
hmm,
chai ke tapri is a common factor across the length and breadth of India. You will
right.
meet people across the class system, caste system. It doesn't matter. You will discuss everything from technology, latest feature phone to politics in a chai ke tapri.
Hmm, hmm.
And as long as you have something like a chai ke tapri,
And we never
and
had a
you
fight. You never had a fight there. You had a discussion, heated discussion, but never a fight. Today you have fights on social media, more of fights and less of discussion
so
sometimes.
more of fights on social media, but more of chai and discussion the chai ke tapri. So as long as you
Yes,
can keep the
yes,
chai ke
yes,
tapri
yes.
in your mind
Hmm.
and encourage the next generation who do not have had this advantage of having a chai ke tapri. No, actually, I'm wrong. I'm wrong. I meet a lot of youngsters also in chai ke tapris.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
You're fine.
Absolutely.
You're fine. I
Yes.
mean, as long as you have people you can relate with. Uh, it's not always possible within homes. We understand. Your teenager is not going to be sharing usable data with you, and you are still going to be very formal with your parents. That's okay. But you need to have. I completely agree that chai ke tapri in your mind, and at least friends from those chai ke tapris that you can relate to.
Yeah, it's like, you know what, that experience of a dhaba in a five-star hotel. They try to bring that feeling, or many people try to create that feeling even in their high tech homes and all that. Gaon ka yaad dila de, waisi kuch baat. And even if, I guess tech should also keep that human part somewhere around you. I wish, I want to see the world that way.
So
That's
here,
what I wish. Uh,
here is an early, thought. There is this new thing which is called AR, VR. Okay,
okay.
augmented reality, virtual reality headsets. Right.
Yes, yes, yes,
Uh,
yes, yes.
Facebook has turned its name into Meta, basically to talk about this metaverse.
Yes.
And
Yesterday
there's a
they lost
huge,
$200 billion.
yeah, because India has stopped adding users because
Yeah.
India's
So,
data costs have grown. No, no,
so that's the news. So I don't know if they will suddenly ask a lot of people to, make more reels to create.
yeah, they,
That's the way
pro-
the world is changing.
they
We will
probably
talk
will.
about all that maybe on the next time. But
Yeah,
Jay, if you have, I guess we have covered a lot of stuff today, and with these thoughts in mind, that we have a more egalitarian world around the tech that everybody uses. With that thought, I guess it's time to say, wrap this edition of the KJ Masterclass. Thank you very, very much.
thank you. Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Thank you.